time, and the two boys were always fighting. The oldest was a girl. She must be in her teens, as she had a set of knockers he could spot a mile away. Maybe the baby was hers, although he never saw her pay it much attention. Every evening she sat on the steps of the front porch, staring into space. A few nights ago he'd heard a lot of yelling. When the big sister had come outside, he could tell that she'd been crying. The mother didn't work, so he assumed she lived on welfare, probably the aid for dependent children she collected for each of her 5 offspring. He assumed she paid for her groceries with food stamps. At least no one in the household smoked. They couldn't use stamps for cigarettes or booze. People traded them to their friends for cash, probably at half their value. Flicking the ashes from his cigarette, he gave the mother extra points because she cooked. He knew she cooked because he'd spied on them through the kitchen window one evening. The aroma was good enough to make him want to knock on the door and ask if he could join them. The children appeared fairly clean, and he could tell the mother didn't spend whatever money came her way on herself. She wore run-down shoes, the same black rayon dress to church every Sunday, and carried a beat-up black plastic handbag. A thief would have to be nuts to try to snatch that old purse, he thought with a chuckle. He suspected it was stuffed full of cash. She was a big woman who could put a hurt on a man if she got riled up. No matter what was happening, she never once set down that purse. One of the boys had fallen off his skateboard and broken his arm 2 days back. His mother had rushed out to help him, the purse shoved under her armpit. It would take a crowbar to pry those arms apart. The purse was a clutch type of thing with no straps. Purse snatchers preferred straps. Most women didn't have that kind of insight. Everywhere he looked, he saw the distinctive signs of poverty. Broken-down cars on the street that had to be pushed every 72 hours to keep the police from towing them. The cops added to the misery of poor people. They didn't have enough money to register their car, so they got a ticket. How could they pay the ticket? If they had any money, they would have registered the car, and car insurance was out of sight. More tickets. Pretty soon the person ended up in jail. When they were freed, they had more fines to pay and new court dates. Why even try? Stay at home and collect welfare. Nobody slapped a ticket on your ass walking to your mailbox. He spent his childhood in the same kind of neighborhood. Holding the Gideon Bible he'd stolen from the motel in front of his chest, his body surged on adrenaline. 5 minutes and counting. He could already hear her singing. It was hard to make out the words, but he recognized the song. Like everything else about her, her voice was pure and sweet. No heavy cologne, no sticky makeup, no body odor, no open sores or needle tracks. Jesus loves me, this I know, 'cause the Bible tells me so. That's my favorite song, he told her, stepping up beside her. He hated it that her new shoes were making contact with the dirty concrete, or that she lived in that run-down old house. She was a princess, his beautiful princess. Her curly brown hair framed her adorable face. Her skin was a rich, warm brown, and her eyes sparkled with joy. How long before the singing stopped? Would she end up sobbing on the porch like her big sister? He had intended on waiting another week, hoping he'd get caught up in his new job and forget what he had convinced himself was a harmless game of counting shoes. He wanted her too badly. He imagined holding her in his arms, smelling her freshly washed hair, stroking her warm and flawless skin. She stopped skipping and glanced over at him. For a few moments she was silent. Then she saw the Bible he was holding. "Do you go to our church?" "Yes, I do," he lied, smiling. "I was talking to your mother this morning. She asked me to keep an eye on you. You know, make sure nothing bad happens." He turned and pointed down the adjacent street. "I don't live that far away." "How's your brother's arm? Your mother told me he fell off his skateboard." "I want a cast, too," she said, fiddling with the ruffles on her flower